back to another episode of Groom Cave. This is Polished Flavors. I am a self-proclaimed co-host, Adrian Williams here, aka Styles with Ace, and I have a few special guests with me here today, Uncle Nearest and David. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Okay. David Neeley is my name. I'm originally from Macon, Georgia. I'm a financial strategist by day, and in the evenings, I am an executive bourbon steward. Today, we're gonna talk about some Uncle Nearest whiskey.
Nice.
My name is Mario Reed from Atlanta, Georgia originally. Currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a civil engineer by day, influencer, lifestyle brand strategist, photographer, and clothing designer by night.
All the above.
Happy to be here with y'all. Let's get to it.
A lot of Georgia people here.
Yeah, I'm from Fayetteville. Every time I tell somebody I'm from Fayetteville, like, Georgia? Nah, that's only one real Fayetteville, so we'll pass that off to the North Carolina boys. Awesome, man. Well, since we're here, Uncle Nearest, man. So what's the need to know about Uncle Nearest? I know my father-in-law, who is also my frat bruh, is a very big fan of Uncle Nearest. I actually first heard of Uncle Nearest through him. So kind of tell me why that's one of those brands that kind of just rings a bell in our community specifically now.
Absolutely. The story is an amazing story of excellence. From the 1800s through slavery and post-slavery. The more modern story is that Uncle Nearest whiskey began in 2017 and continues to be led by an amazing small group of women. It is the most awarded American whiskey brand, and they are on track to continue doing that. The commitment to excellence is inspiring, and I'm glad to be a part of the show so we can talk about it.
I love it. And I love the fact that you said that women are leading right now. I feel like in this day and age, it's just amazing to see women, especially black women, kind of taking the charge and leading in some of those areas. So I guess on that piece, as a married man as well, I know you're married. You guys just relocated to Charlotte recently. Kind of how do you, in the midst of everything you've already mentioned, how do you stay well polished, being a married man and kind of all the above?
Prayer and let my wife make all the decisions. No, to be completely candid, keeping my expectations polished, and I put some thought into this. What do I expect out of life, right? Like, you got a 9-to-5, you got a business, you are a husband, and I know you're a father, I'm not a father yet. Do I expect that to be easy? Do I expect to go to a job and just absolutely love it? Do I expect to hate it? Do I expect to be rich and never have to work? Like, just keeping my mind grounded, not overthinking too much, not, putting too high expectations on myself, but also still expecting a lot of myself and the people around me. I think that helps with not only like leading yourself and staying grounded, but also when you're a husband, you gotta lead the household. You gotta lead, others around you. That's what I guess would make you the most polished, moving gracefully, how you handle adversity, things of that nature. So I actually flip it back to you because you are a father and I'm not. So everything I just said, to me, you have tenfold to deal with, 10 times less amount of time to yourself. So how do you manage? How do you keep yourself polished inside and out, now that you're a new dad? Yeah,
in addition to everything you've already said, I think, just having that self-awareness, man, and really knowing what your purpose is when it comes to, say, being a dad or just being an influencer or a content creator or even just a corporate employee. So for me, after being a dad, man, it's just like, I felt like it was something that I always wanted to be, and something that I felt like I just knew it was like my purpose to be a dad in this life, man. And I feel like I get emotional when I talk about being a dad, man, because it's just like something that I knew, again, that I always wanted to be, and I just know what I can pass down to my son and set an example for my son. So if I cry on set, like, y'all, please forgive me, but man, it's just, I get worked up when I talk about being a dad, man. It's just something that really moves me, and I think this past year of my life has been just transformational, man. So it's a lot, man. Again, just having that self-awareness and being able to set that expectation of what you want your son to see growing up in every aspect of life. And I guess going back to the Uncle Nearest story, how do you feel like Uncle Nearest started off being that example for, say, those of us nowadays, back in, I guess, the late 2000s compared to the 1800s? How do you think he set a good example of, what a black man at that time should be doing or could be doing to move forward?
And may I add to that before you go? Apologize. You mentioned you're an example for your son. Well, you're an example being an African-American man here, giving us these tastes, giving us this knowledge. How do you feel being the one here doing this and potentially being an example for Lord knows how many people are going to see who might want to take this up. Like you said, you have a day job, you move just like the rest of us, but you're also doing this, which is extremely interesting and takes a lot of skill. So two-part question.
Well, as a member of the oldest undergraduate fraternity that was created ever, 1906, I'm used to being in that position. Oh, right? Just messing around.
Make sure we get this in the camera.
The way I feel about it is that this is a work in progress. I think piggybacking on some of the other episodes that you guys have done, we're talking about perspective and diversity of thought is what I draw from these conversations. You have to you have to have an internal perspective of who you are, not just intellectually, but emotionally. There's a book called Emotional Intelligence that is an amazing book that talks about self-awareness, social awareness, and management in both those spaces. Without it, I believe the statistic is some upwards of 85% of executives that are successful have high EQ.
Yeah.
Which is a malleable quotient, right? So it can go, it can come, it can go. That's why I think this is a work in progress. So having perspective is really important. And then diversity of thought. Diversity of thought, I think, is something that the Uncle Nearest organization has built into its DNA.
Yeah.
How do you become the fastest growing, one of the most award-winning organizations in American whiskey history without diversity of thought? This, just from a pure game theory point of view, if you do what number one does, the best you can do is be number two. You got to zig sometimes if you want to overtake number one. And so I think that that organization embodies both of those concepts of emotional intelligence and diversity of perspective, rather, and diversity of thought.
Definitely, and I think that's a great segue into kind of diversifying the liquor. So if you can, just kind of tell us, I guess, what's in front of us.
What's in front of us today is two 100 proof whiskey iterations from the Nearest Green Distillery. And it's the 1856, which is a Tennessee whiskey, subset of bourbon. And then we have a straight rye whiskey. Very different mash bill, very different flavor, but they share the proof, right? So let's go ahead and let's jump into the 1856. The significance of the year 1856 is this is when Uncle Nearest and Jack Daniel perfected the Lincoln County process. Two individuals. Uncle Nearest is already filtering water through charred sugar maple, through charcoal, but together they perfected what we now know today as Lincoln County process. Needed some diversity of thought and perspective, and Uncle Nearest clearly was open to that, and Jack was open to that. So that's what we're going to taste today. Let's sip. Nose to nose first, mechanics. So we're just sipping. That's right, yeah. What do you smell?
I feel like I can smell some cinnamon in there.
I don't know what I smell, but it feels light and airy versus others that may have smelled.
This your first sip of the day?
Yes.
You a whiskey drinker?
I think so, yeah.
Light and airy to me sounds like you feel like you're gonna have a good time.
Here for a good time, not a long time.
No whiskey drinkers don't come out with light and airy. No, you think you're gonna have a good time. So, and you will. That first sip over the tongue, back over the teeth.
Definitely feels smoky.
Yeah, I definitely feel that smoky that you're mentioning. I feel like I still taste the cinnamon kind of hints in there as well. So,
what's the, I guess, duration? Because it's just now kind of simmering down, excuse me, my esophagus, and it's kind of sat for a minute. What is that? And how does that differentiate between whiskeys, ryes, et cetera?
Yeah, the finish is something that can vary between different whiskeys, different spirits in general. Wines have different finishes also. The longer the finish, the more continuity you have between flavors. If you're sitting at a pairing or a dinner, the more continuity you have between sip and bite, sip and bite, sip and bite. And that makes the experience a little bit more technically enjoyable, in my opinion, because you still remember the flavor of the previous sip than the previous bite. So that's the finish that you're feeling. Any physical responses to that finish?
A little tingling. I was a little cold when I walked in here, but I'm feeling a little bit better now. So warm me up just a little bit. What about you?
Didn't feel a warming, but it's sitting right here. That's what's on my mind.
So a lot of times people would use the word smooth when we talk about the way the finish feels. Does it make you cough? Does it make your epiglottis like, does it curl up? Do you feel like you swallowed liquid down your trachea, right? That gives people cause to say, okay, this is a bump in the road. I think this whiskey is smooth in the sense that it's like riding down the road and overinflated tires. You don't feel any bumps in the road. Now, maybe you were trying to breathe in at the same time you were taking that whiskey in because you're trying to smell while you sip. Two different functions. While we go ahead and we nose first, mechanically speaking, and then when we sip, we don't breathe, we swallow. The second sip you take, and we'll get to the rye in a moment. The second sip you take, you let it roll over your soft palate at the top, so you sort of push the liquid up. It's going to give you a different sensation physically, and you're also going to taste a few different things. And that would also, like I said, the physical part of it may express itself a little bit differently. Maybe there'll be something lingering or not lingering when it comes to your physical response and the flavors that you remember.
Nice.
Absolutely was trying to breathe while sipping that last one. So
A
I need to redo y'all.
Yeah, well, let's get into this rye. Let's see what this rye is talking about. All right.
100 proof whiskey, this rye. While you nose it, I'll tell you the story. The grain is 100% from Canada. It's Canadian rye. The whiskey is made in Canada, and once it's made, it's shipped over to New York. Sits in New York for a few years, about 3 years, and then for those last year and a few months, it's shipped over to Tennessee to be finished in ex-Uncle Nearest barrels in the Tennessee heat, where the wood moves and contracts depending on the season. All the whiskeys in the Uncle Nearest range that are available in the stores are at least 4 years old. So what you're drinking is maybe international in its roots and Southern all at the same time.
Smell like a honey or molasses.
First time I drank it, I thought there were pralines. Remind me of pralines and pecans and vanilla.
Yeah, that'll take you back. I heard you guys on some of the other episodes talking about grandma's house, and I grew up around a grandma who loved to say, boy, go back out in the backyard and go get some pecans and bring them back inside. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling that, and I could smell like the sweetness to it also. Yeah, so it's a pretty good taste in here today. Yeah, so I have some information to take back to my father-in-law, see if I can educate him some.
What do you think about the finish on this one compared to the 56?
Much more smooth in my opinion. A quicker finish.
You stopped breathing while you were trying to swallow?
Yeah, so
that helps.
First one was on me. Definitely felt the rise up to the top of the mouth.
Yeah, I guess I would just echo the same thing. I don't feel like it was, I guess, lingering as much as the 56 was. So I don't know. I know we can all get some different tones and different flavors and different feels from it, but I think that's kind of how it was for me.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you go to either bar, restaurant, you order an old fashioned, which is my go-to or favorite drink. They typically ask you what type of whiskey or rye, whatever would you like. What would you choose and why?
The 56 is perfect for that. A lot of folks like to use the rye whiskey for the old fashioned, but I think the 56 stands up very well to the sweetness of the sugar and also carries the flavor of the bitters very well. A little bit of history on the old fashioned. So the old fashioned, you probably know, can be done many different ways. It can be done with bourbon. It can be done with rye. It can be done with scotch and mezcal and tequila, right? So why do we all call all of those drinks old fashioned? Well, prior to whiskey being sold in bottles, what was inside the barrel was obscured. It could be a bunch of different stuff. Some of it didn't taste very good. It'd be formaldehyde, rat poison, tobacco juice, all these crazy things. So I forget the name of the bartender who came up with the concept, but he began to add sugar and water and these flavoring agents called bitters to the whiskey to change the flavor, to make it more palatable. So some folks began coming into the bar, I think it was in Kentucky. This guy came up with this. Somewhere in I think it was Louisville. This guy came up with it. There or Chicago. Anyway, somebody looked that up. Anyway, so it comes up with this idea to add sugar, water, and bitter flavoring agents to the whiskey to make it taste better. So when folks began to come in over the years, they'd order a cocktail made the old-fashioned way with whiskey. So the term is a bit like Xerox. It's not really, yeah, Xerox and Kleenex, that's right, yeah. You just want a cocktail made the old-fashioned way with sugar, water, and bitters.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think we learned a lot today. I have a lot of information I can take back to my father-in-law, and hopefully I'll leave here with a bottle of Uncle Nearest as well, so we can talk about that on the side, though. But David, we do appreciate you, and I guess we'll go ahead and close out on a cheers.
That's right. Cheers to Kith and Kin.
All right,